A young woman enters a hotel elevator in downtown Los Angeles. She presses button after button, peeks into the hallway, hides in the corner, and waves her arms as if she's speaking to someone invisible. Moments later, she disappears. Weeks later, her body is found floating inside a rooftop water tank. And to this day, no one can say for sure what happened to Elisa Lam inside the infamous Cecil Hotel. This is not just a crime story. It's not just a missing persons case. This is one of the most chilling, unsolved mysteries in modern American history. A case that terrifies even the most hardened detectives and keeps internet sleuths awake at night. Tonight, we dive into the strange, tragic, and terrifying mystery of Elisa Lam and the haunted halls of Los Angeles' most infamous hotel, the Cecil Hotel. Before we unravel the events of that night, let's talk about Elisa herself. Elisa Lam was just 21 years old. She lived in Vancouver, Canada, a daughter, a student, a young woman full of potential. She wasn't a celebrity. She wasn't famous. She was just like anyone else, someone who wanted to see the world, to experience new things. But behind Elisa's cheerful smile, she also carried heavy burdens. She had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. She was open about it. In fact, Elisa often shared her thoughts, her feelings, and her struggles on her personal blog, a Tumblr page called Nouvelle Nouveau. Her writing revealed a mix of humor, sadness, creativity, and pain. Sometimes her posts were uplifting, other times deeply melancholic. For those who've read her words, it almost feels like you're reading the diary of someone searching desperately for balance in life. In January of 2013, Elisa decided to take a solo trip through California. She traveled by herself, using Amtrak trains and buses, updating her blog as she went. She was excited. This was her adventure, a break from the routine of school, a chance to see the world on her own. Her parents were supportive, but they worried. Elisa had a history of mental health struggles, and traveling alone can be dangerous. So they made an agreement. Elisa would call them every single day, and for the first part of her trip, she kept that promise. On January 26th, Elisa arrived in Los Angeles. Instead of booking a luxury hotel or a hostel filled with tourists, she chose the Cecil Hotel. At first glance, the Cecil might have seemed like an affordable downtown option, but its walls carried a history soaked in death and tragedy. The Cecil Hotel was built in 1924. In its early years, it was a glamorous stop for businessmen and travelers. But the Great Depression changed everything. Over time, the Cecil decayed. Its neighborhood grew darker, its rooms cheaper. What was once a symbol of elegance became a place of despair. By the mid-20th century, the Cecil Hotel had become infamous for death. Countless suicides had taken place there. People leaping from windows, overdosing in rooms, or simply never leaving. Serial killers walked its halls. Richard Ramirez, better known as the Night Stalker, lived there in 1985 during his brutal killing spree. Another murderer, Jack Unterweger, stayed there in 1991 while killing women in Los Angeles. The building was cursed, or at least it felt that way. Locals called it the Suicide Hotel. Others simply called it evil. But Elisa didn't know the depth of this darkness when she checked in. For her, it was just a temporary stop, a cheap central location while she explored the city. She was assigned to a shared room at first, like a hostel. But within days, something was wrong. Her roommates complained. Elisa's behavior, they said, was strange, unsettling. We don't know the full details, but the hotel eventually moved her into her own private room. It's as if Elisa was spiraling, and people around her could feel it. Still, she continued sightseeing in Los Angeles. On January 31st, she visited a local bookstore called The Last Bookstore. The owner, Katie Orphan, remembered her clearly. Elisa was cheerful, friendly, and even bought gifts to take back to her family. She talked about her parents, about her excitement for the rest of the trip. To Katie, she seemed like any other young traveler. Nothing appeared wrong. That was the last time anyone outside the hotel saw her alive. February 1st, 2013. The day Elisa Lam was last seen, what happened in those final hours remains one of the strangest and most disturbing mysteries caught on camera. The footage, later released by the LAPD, would become infamous. Millions would watch it online. Internet forums would explode with theories. To this day, it is considered one of the creepiest videos ever recorded in a hotel. At first, the video looks ordinary. Elisa steps into the elevator, wearing a red sweatshirt, shorts, and sandals. She bends down, presses several buttons on the control panel, and then waits. But the elevator doors don't close. Seconds pass. Elisa peeks out into the hallway. She looks left, then right. She steps back into the corner of the elevator, hiding. Her body language changes. Tense, nervous, almost frightened. It's as if she's running from someone, but there's no one there. She steps out cautiously. Her hands move in strange, sweeping gestures like she's trying to communicate with someone unseen. Her fingers spread, bend, twist. Some say she looked as though she was casting a spell. Others believe she was speaking to someone, or something, invisible. She steps in and out of the elevator again. She presses more buttons, almost every button, but the elevator never moves. The doors stay open, as though frozen in time. Finally, she steps out for the last time. The doors close behind her. Elisa Lam is never seen alive again. The footage runs for just over 2 minutes, yet it raises endless questions. Why didn't the elevator respond? Was Elisa hiding from someone? Was she hallucinating? Or was something more sinister happening in that hallway, just out of frame? After Elisa vanished, the Los Angeles Police Department launched a search. Flyers with her photo were posted across the city. Her family flew in from Canada, desperate for answers. But days passed, and Elisa was nowhere to be found. Police searched the hotel, room by room. They brought in K9 units. The dogs picked up her scent, but then, strangely, lost it on the upper floors, almost as if Elisa had vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, guests at the Cecil Hotel began to notice something strange. Their showers were weak. The water tasted unusual. Some guests even reported that it looked dark. On February 19th, nearly 3 weeks after Elisa was last seen, a maintenance worker named Santiago Lopez climbed to the roof of the Cecil Hotel to inspect the water tanks. He had been sent to check the system after multiple complaints from guests. When he reached the massive cylindrical tanks, he opened the heavy metal lid, and inside, floating in the water, was Elisa Lam. Her body was nude, her clothes floating nearby. The discovery horrified everyone. Guests realized they had been drinking, showering, and brushing their teeth with water from the very tank that held Elisa's decomposing body. The rooftop itself was difficult to access. The doors leading up were locked and alarmed. Only staff had keys. To reach the tanks, one had to climb up a ladder, then lift the heavy lids. How could Elisa have done this on her own? An autopsy was performed. The results left more questions than answers. No signs of sexual assault, no significant physical trauma, no illegal drugs in her system, only her prescribed medication for bipolar disorder. The official cause of death: accidental drowning, with bipolar disorder listed as a contributing factor. But if it was an accident, how did Elisa reach the rooftop? How did she open the tank? And why did the elevator behave so strangely that night? Even stranger, the released elevator footage appeared to be edited. Several minutes seemed to be missing, as though someone had cut out crucial moments. Who edited it? And why? For the public, the Elisa Lam case was shocking. But for the Cecil Hotel, it was another addition to its long, bloody history. The building had claimed lives before, and now it had claimed Elisa. But was this history the reason for her death? Or was it something else? Something hiding in the shadows of the hotel, unseen, unheard, waiting. When Elisa Lam's body was discovered in the rooftop water tank, the case should have been closed. The coroner ruled it an accidental drowning, but the world refused to accept that answer. Too much didn't make sense. Too many questions were left behind. The first and most common explanation points to Elisa's mental health. She had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. Records show she was prescribed several medications: Wellbutrin, Lamictal, Seroquel, and Effexor. Her autopsy confirmed that she hadn't been taking all of them as directed. Some were missing from her system entirely. Could she have experienced a severe manic or psychotic episode? Perhaps paranoia made her believe someone was following her. Maybe hallucinations explain the strange movements in the elevator. In such a state, it's possible she wandered onto the roof, climbed into the tank, and drowned accidentally. But even if this theory is true, it still doesn't explain everything. How did she bypass the locked doors? Why didn't the alarm sound? And how did she lift the heavy lid to the water tank on her own? Others believe Elisa didn't climb into the tank voluntarily. The fact that the video seemed tampered with, slowed down with missing timestamps, suggests possible evidence manipulation. Was someone following her that night? Did someone force her into the tank, then cover their tracks? Her clothes were found floating separately in the water. Some interpret this as a sign of foul play. Others argue that in the process of drowning, it's not unusual for clothes to come off. But here's the chilling part. Hotel staff insisted the water tank lid was found closed. If true, how could Elisa have sealed it shut after entering? If someone else was involved and they were never caught. No suspects were identified. No arrests were made. The case was ruled an accident, but many refuse to believe that's the whole truth. Then, there's the paranormal explanation. The Cecil Hotel, after all, is a place soaked in death and tragedy. Some claim it's cursed. Some say it's haunted. On ghost forums, people argue that Elisa was possessed or stalked by an unseen force. The strange hand gestures in the elevator? Not communication, but resistance, as if she was trying to push something invisible away. When you consider the Cecil's history, the theory doesn't feel far-fetched to some. The hotel has been connected to serial killers, suicides, and unexplained deaths. Was Elisa another victim of the building's dark energy? Some theories even go beyond the paranormal. Internet sleuths pointed out chilling coincidences. For example, shortly after Elisa's death, there was a tuberculosis outbreak near Skid Row. The test used to detect tuberculosis, it was called the LAMELISA test. A coincidence, or something darker. Others suggest government cover-ups, hidden experiments, or foul play involving hotel staff. None of these theories have evidence, but the coincidences are haunting enough to fuel speculation even years later. The mystery of Elisa Lam exploded online. Millions of people studied the elevator footage frame by frame, desperate to find clues. Entire YouTube channels, Reddit threads, and blogs were dedicated to solving her death. Some claim they spotted a shadowy foot in the video, suggesting another person was present. Others said her strange hand gestures resembled the movements of someone under the influence of hallucinogens. But toxicology reports proved otherwise. As the theories multiplied, so did the obsession. But through it all, one truth remained. No one could say for certain what happened in Elisa's final moments. The Elisa Lam case left a permanent mark on pop culture. Documentaries were made, songs were written. Netflix released a series titled Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, reigniting global interest. But even with all the attention, the core mystery remained unsolved. For Elisa's family, the case was more than internet speculation. She was a daughter, a sister, a student with dreams. They remember her not for how she died, but for how she lived, curious, adventurous, and filled with potential. And so, we are left with haunting questions. Why did the elevator not function that night? Who edited the security footage, and what was cut out? How did Elisa reach the locked rooftop? Did she climb into the tank herself, or was she placed there? And if she entered willingly, why? Each answer seems to raise new mysteries. Each theory leaves something unexplained. And the truth, perhaps, is something we'll never fully know. Elisa Lam's death remains one of the most chilling, unsolved cases of our time. A young woman alone in a haunted hotel vanishes under impossible circumstances, only to be found in the most disturbing place imaginable. So I leave you with this question. What do you believe happened to Elisa Lam? Was it a tragic accident, a cruel act of foul play, or something far beyond human explanation? Because sometimes the scariest mysteries are the ones we can't solve.